168 hours. Everybody gets the same number. So why does yours feel like 30? My guest tonight tracked her own time for 14 years. Guys, 14. She raised 5 kids, 5, and wrote 10 books on time abundance. Her new one, Big Time, drops in a few days. Welcome everyone, Laura van der Kam.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So cool. And by the end of this episode, we will have some clues on how to regain a little bit of that time. Laura, you have tracked your time for over 14 years, week by week. Walk me through the single week where the data changed how you live.
Well, one thing that was amazing to me is that over a longer period of time, I am always sleeping the same amount. So I think a lot of us have this idea of like certain periods of life where we're not sleeping, or maybe, you know, like if your kids are younger, you're sleeping less, or if it's a particularly busy time at work, maybe you're sleeping less over the long haul. But I found that however much travel I'm doing, or however the age of my kids, over a longer period of time, like over 6 to 8 weeks, I always average out to somewhere between 7.3 and 7.4 hours of sleep per day. So I've come to believe that this must just be the amount of sleep I need. And that has inspired me to try to get that amount every night, instead of trying to do like, you know, short some nights, longer others. Sometimes people, you know, are up late on like Tuesday night and have to be up early Wednesday morning, so they're short sleeping during the week, trying to make up the time on weekends. Like, no, I'm just trying to be in bed by enough time that I can sleep for 7.3 to 7.4 hours before I need to wake up. And it's made my life feel a lot more calm, really.
And does it mean that you try to wake up at the same time or go to bed at the same time or both?
Well, I mean, I have to set an alarm in the morning, as I'm sure a lot of people do, for making sure you're up for work or family responsibilities, right? So the key thing is that I'm going to bed enough before that I'm generally drifting up already by the time the alarm goes off, which I mostly am. It's pretty cool.
So we can zoom out like 6 to 8 weeks and then we know our actual needs.
Yeah, because your body's going to force you to get there. I mean, unless you are, you know, a chronic insomniac, which is a different medical issue that I'm not commenting on. But if you're a normal person who sometimes sleeps less and sometimes sleeps more, probably over a longer period of time, it will average out. The short nights will be compensated for by taking naps, by crashing early, by sleeping in on weekends. And so instead of doing all that, yeah, just take the average, try to sleep that amount every night. And not only do you feel more energetic, it gives shape to your entire day. You know, I think a lot of us kind of understand that the day has a beginning. We're a little less set on the idea that each day has an end, but it does. And so if I know that I'm sleeping 7.3 to 7.4 hours each day, well, I know that I have, what is that, 16.6 to 16.7 waking hours to play with. Like, the things I want to do in life have to fit in that time, and allows me to, you know, place things more strategically when I know exactly what I'm working with.
Do you literally think in like 16 hours and use them like Tetris?
It's more or less like Tetris, yeah. Like if this day, you know, if it's during a work day and I want to work 8 hours and also exercise for 45 and have a family dinner, maybe play outside with the kids for, you know, 30 minutes after dinner, do the bedtime routine, get 30 minutes for reading before I fall asleep. I'd sit there and look, does that all fit? And those numbers do in fact fit. I've done it. But, you know, that lets you say, like, am I biting off more than I can chew for this particular day? And do I maybe need to look at another day to put these things in? Or is this amount of stuff okay and still has some space around it? You know, if stuff comes up, things go wrong, transitions take longer.
You wrote 9 books before you wrote the current book, Big Time. Off the Clock, 168 Hours, Tranquility by Tuesday, What the Most Successful People Do Before Breakfast. What was missing in those 9 books that you started number 10?
Well, that's a good question, because I always want to make sure that if I am writing books for busy people, that I am giving you something new in each new book. Like, I don't want to waste anyone's time. So Big Time is a collection of topics that get at the idea of time abundance and that I had long been fascinated by, but hadn't written as much about as I would have liked to. So for this book, I have four separate, like big scale challenges I did, independent research with hundreds of people trying out various strategies. And so the results of those are in the book. What I found from tracking my own time for a very long time, what I found from studying what happens when other people track their time, for instance. I'd had lots of people track their time over the years, but had never looked at it systematically in terms of what the outcomes were from doing it. So I felt that was missing in all of this and wanted to write a book that not only looked at that, but also just asked this question of, what happens when you move beyond a story of time scarcity and truly start to see time as abundant. I really do think it is possible to fall in love with our schedules, however busy we may be. And that's what I hope people will get out of this book.
If you think about your day tomorrow, do you think you have a lot of time?
I do, in fact. I will, before the end of today, which is Monday, and we are recording this, make myself a priority list for tomorrow. And I will look at everything that is going on for the day. I will look at the time that is available. And I will look at what I need to do, like what obligations are already on my calendar or that I've committed to in other ways. And then, what space is still available for me to make steps toward larger projects I am doing. And the good news is tomorrow is not terribly tightly scheduled. I always like to have days that are a little bit more open. So I'll be able to execute on steps toward a lot of larger projects over tomorrow. I'm looking at the day. I think there should be time for a 30-minute run somewhere in there. So I'll block that in. It's a day with a lot of kid stuff going on later in the day. So I will be able to make sure that kids get to various places. As I'm thinking about when I'm in the car with individual children, like what I could use that time to talk with them about, because as you have a lot of kids, you wind up enjoying when you can get just one of them for any given time. And then also stuff that's, special for right now. My oldest is just finished up his freshman year of college, and he just came home last weekend. So I'm trying to make sure that we have some time carved out for me to spend a little bit of extra time with him during the course of the day. So I'm thinking about all this, thinking where it can fit, and it will fit in 16.6 hours. It'll be a full day, but probably not what I'd call a busy day. So yeah, I think there is space for a lot.
We have three kids, and whenever we do something with one kid, we totally enjoy it, but also the other two are so jealous. How do you solve for that?
Well, I guess it's that just, what goes around comes around. That as long as everyone is getting their time somewhere, then you get a little bit less of the jealousy elsewhere. I would also say that my kids are getting a little bit older. Like my oldest three are teenagers. And if you can even get them to spend time with you, you're a pretty lucky person. I am grateful that they are often willing to chat with me, so I try not to take that for granted. But I think the jealousy comes in a little bit less as they get older, and more that I am just like desperately trying to get them to pay attention to me.
You write about little bets inside a normal schedule. What's a little bet?
Well, this isn't a chapter that's on being open to serendipity, and part of this is, a lot of productivity literature is about saying no to stuff. Like we want to say no to the things that don't matter so we have space for the things that do matter. And I think there's a lot to that. And I definitely encourage people to say no to things that aren't meaningful or enjoyable to themselves or the people they care about. But if you think about it, you soon see that almost all new opportunities, adventures, big breakthroughs, relationships come out of saying yes to something new. Because if you knew about it, you would already be doing it. It's the things that we don't know about that we have to try out and see where they might lead in order to achieve these new breakthroughs. Now, obviously, nobody has infinite time and space in their schedule. So I think it's helpful to think of these tiny bets that you could make to try things out and see what might come of it, right? So maybe you are in the business of making courses and you're trying to figure out, well, what's a way I could grow my market? Like, well, I'd like to be known more as a thought leader on this topic. Well, I hear that people write newsletters about this topic. Okay, but it seems like a newsletter is going to take a lot of time. I don't want to do this for the rest of my life if it's not going anywhere. Well, don't. You don't have to do it for the rest of your life. Maybe you decide that you will write 3 newsletters a week for 6 months on this topic and see what happens, right? Now, in the course of doing this, something will happen. Like you'll get some information. It might be that this is really a terrible direction for your business, and that's useful information too. It might be that you're totally bored with the topic after 3 weeks, which is also good information. It may be that people, have zero reaction to a certain number of the posts you write, but like 1 or 2 just go out. People are writing you left and right, sharing stories. You keep thinking about, well, there's something there. Maybe you want to pursue that idea a little more. So these little bets just lead to information, to figuring out new things we should be doing, or maybe even to new opportunities that somebody finds you through this newsletter and emails you, and you guys start working together, and maybe the newsletter itself dies after 6 months, but now you've got a new direction with this new contact that you're doing something great with. So that's what I mean by little bets.
I like that. Which chapter is most alive for you?
So, I don't like to have favorite chapters or favorite books. It's kind of like having a favorite kid, talking about people being jealous.
Oh,
But maybe one of the chapters that the other chapters would be jealous of is the one about becoming the ringmaster of your life. I use a very extended circus metaphor in Big Time to talk about planning and being how we deal with a complex life. There's a lot out there about sort of simplifying and minimalism and how that's kind of the answer for the complexity of modern life. And there's something to that. But in many cases, lots of us just have structurally complex lives. Like if you're managing a business with multiple employees, if you have a lot of kids, like let's say your spouse is also working, like we've got a lot going on. There's a lot of moving parts, right? But complexity and chaos are not the same thing. They are not the same thing at all. Things can be complex without being chaotic. And to get at this, I like to use the metaphor of a circus. When people say my life is a circus, they tend to mean it as chaotic,
yeah.
but that is a slander against circuses because a circus is incredibly well organized. Like all the tricks are happening within a fraction of the second of what they are supposed to be doing. Everyone goes in the right order. The sequences happen when they are supposed to happen. And so I like to think of myself as the ringmaster of the circus of my life. And this circus has 3 rings: career, relationships, so that's family and friends, and then self, the things I'm managing for my own physical, emotional, mental health. And a good ringmaster knows what's going on in all 3 spheres at all times. She has thought through the details. She knows that things are happening when they are supposed to happen. A lot of things happen automatically, right? That it's well rehearsed. It's going as it's supposed to go. And, a lot of tricks in a circus are performed over a net. Like we need to think about what'll we do when things go wrong. And I think having a lot of, backup plans, option Bs, all that is what's really key for making a complex life look more like a delightful circus and less like total chaos.
Yeah, you're totally reframing how I think about the circus. I also used to say, oh, such a circus here in my family is a circus because it's very spontaneous and complex and loud and chaotic. But actually, a circus is super well organized.
Yet nobody's getting shot out of a cannon at the wrong time.
In the
So,
wrong direction, right? Yeah,
or in the wrong
exactly.
direction. No. Everything is incredibly well organized, and so I aspire to have my life be like a circus.
Absolutely. What are the minimal elements for listeners to organize like a circus, to be well organized?
So I think every busy person needs a dedicated weekly planning time. And this is when you sit down, look at the upcoming week, and ask yourself what is most important in all these 3 rings, right? In for your professional life, for your relationships, for yourself. What is most important over the next week? Like what steps toward your larger goals would you like to see happen in all 3 rings? You also look at the obligations that are already on your calendar, the things that you are on the hook for over the next week, even if they're not your top priorities. Like, do you have the logistics figured out? Do you have enough time? allocated for these things? Or do you need to move things around or cancel things or ask for help or whatever else you need to do to make the next week work? You think about what could go wrong. Like, have you figured out a backup plan for anything that's very important to you if things go awry? And, building in some open space is helpful for that. And then finally, a good circus is managed for delight. Like, people don't want to see a circus that looks like drudgery where everyone's just marching through their tricks. They want it to look really cool and exciting and fun. And with that, as part of our weekly planning ritual, I think everyone should look at their calendar and their schedule and make sure that there is something you are genuinely looking forward to, right? Something that you think about in your upcoming week. You're like, yes, that's going to be a highlight. I am really excited about that thing. If you don't have anything, like, go back and work on the schedule again until you get something. But if you do this week after week, life will start to feel a lot more organized, because as part of this, even if you've never been doing this before, the sheer fact of checking in once a week will prompt you to reflect on your life. And if you see, as you're planning the next week, that the stuff that you planned for the week that just happened, like, none of it happened, well, that prompts some questions, right? Like, well, why not? Like, what happened? Was it too ambitious? Like, did too many things go awry that you didn't foresee? And if so, why did that happen? Or, or is this things you didn't want to do? Like, why? Like, approaching it with a spirit of curiosity. And if you do this week after week, eventually you start to make lists that look more like what will actually happen over the next week. And then it becomes this sort of flywheel of productivity, because the things you set out to do over the week are the things that happen over the week. And then you check in the next week and you celebrate your successes and look forward to the next ones.
Do you meet more people who say, I want to have an empty calendar, or more people who say, I want to have everything in my calendar? If it's not in the calendar, it's not going to happen.
I think there's different approaches. Different people have different levels of comfort with the amount of stuff in their schedule. Those of us who have fairly complex lives tend to wind up with more things, whether you want to or not. I saw somebody on social media who had like one kid talking about how overscheduled they were with 5 activities. And I'm like, well, with 5 kids, each of my kid had one activity that would be the same volume, right? Like, it's still like, and one is very little. Like, so, they're in like 2 or 3. So you're dealing just automatically with 15, 20 things. Just through sheer numbers of people that are being managed in this. And, it's the same thing. If you're running a business, if you have like 6 people in your company and you're the manager of them, like, you are dealing with what 6 people are doing. And even if you have good systems, there's still, some element of managing it. And so,
does a normal calendar even work with 7 people when 7 people share calendar?
Yeah. It's just like, so what I would say is everybody needs some open space in their schedule. And this is just because stuff comes up, right? It is rare that we know in front of a week all the things that will happen in the course of the week. Life comes up, things happen, could be bad stuff, could be good stuff, probably a little bit of both, right? Because that's life. And so you want to leave space for things to happen that you didn't expect without those displacing the things you plan to do, right? Because where people wind up keeping moving stuff forward, like progress toward their big goals keeps getting shoved forward, is because they had a schedule that was too tight. And yes, it had space for progress toward all their goals. But when life happened, those were the things that didn't have to happen this week. And so it gets shoved to the next week, or somebody's trying to, do it late at night or on the weekends or anything like that. And that's where we seem to encounter problems. So we want to have enough open space to absorb the unexpected, both good and bad. I know that some people who do have very busy schedules do better when they put optional things actually as calendar entries. So instead of just being like, okay, I'm going to work out after work, like, they actually calendar on, their electronic calendar, like, okay, I'm going to end work at 5:30. It takes 15 minutes to get to the gym. That's on my calendar. I'm working out from 5:45 to 6:30, 15 minutes home, 6:45, we'll be figuring out dinner. We eat at 7:15 or, but they would have all that on the calendar because they know if they don't, it's like going to get scheduled over with other stuff and they don't want it to. If other people don't have access to your calendar and you're pretty good at your habits, like if you always exercise at 6 a.m. and nobody's going to be able to put something in 6 a.m. without your permission, then you probably don't need to put it on your calendar. So that's more of a personal preference and a function of how many things you're trying to fit in your life.
After all this research, what's the one thing where you think, oh my God, if I knew this like 5 years ago?
So I have been trying to use my evenings better lately. And I really do think that weekday evenings are kind of the final frontier in
Hmm.
terms of time management. We know a lot of people have good morning routines. That's a time of day that has been written about a lot, including by me. I find it fascinating when people have elaborate morning routines that allow them to exercise or have relationship time or do creative work before the rest of their day. But even people with good morning routines often get to weekday evenings and everything just falls apart. Everyone is tired. Like you get home, like theoretically, if you have young kids, maybe they go to bed at 8:30. You don't go to bed till 10:30. You've got like 2 hours. You could do stuff. And it's completely lost to just like puttering around the house or trying to find something on Netflix that you and your spouse both want to
How
watch.
do you know?
Or you're
Yeah.
like you go to check your email and like within 5 minutes, you're out of your email. You're on social media comments. You're reading headlines, like you're doom scrolling. This is what people spend their time doing. See, I think of it as electronic hobbies, right? We spend our weekday evenings on our electronic hobbies. But I think at least if somebody was thinking about it and said, would you like to devote 10 hours a week to your electronic hobby of doom scrolling and checking social media comments? They'd be like, no, I don't want to devote 10 hours a week to that. And yet we do because it's easy and we're not spending our time intentionally. So I've challenged people, and I do this to myself as well, to put something like on your to-do list if you're the kind of person who follows your to-do list, but something for the evening that would be relaxing and fun for you. And that takes about 30 minutes, but some intention for the evening so you feel like the evening really happened. So for me, it's like thinking ahead of time, okay, I want to read 30 minutes in this book that I am working on, or I have a new magazine that showed up. I want to read through this magazine tonight. Or, I'm not going to work out during the day or earlier in the day. I actually want to get on the treadmill for 30 minutes tonight. That's something I want to do. Or I love doing puzzles. I like do a ton of 1,000-piece puzzles. It's my particular thing I like to do. So I always have like a puzzle going. So I was like, I want to spend 30 minutes doing a jigsaw puzzle tonight. But if I go into the evening knowing that's what I want to do, I'm more attuned to like making sure I find the time for it, even, amid whatever else is going on. And while I'm doing it, I'm happy that I'm doing it. And afterwards, I can reflect and be like, hey, that evening was an actual evening. The time didn't just disappear. I spent 30 minutes on my puzzle or read another chapter in this book. And that's really changed the way I feel about this time of day.
And it's a lot of time. Like it's probably 2 hours each evening.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody has young kids who go to bed relatively early, that could be a fair amount of time after they go to bed. People have older kids who don't necessarily do that, but then they need less, guidance and hands-on care. So then the time might open up anyway. But even and it can even start before that too. Like, I mean, I've looked at time diary stuff. In the United States, at least, most people are done with work and work-related activities by about 6 p.m. The proportion of people who are in bed, it's well under half at 10 o'clock. It's more than half at 11 o'clock. So people are going to bed somewhere in there. But what this means is most people have 4 to 5 hours in the weekday evening between the end of work and when they go to bed. Now, that is a lot of time to write off is unusable. Like it's the bulk of your family or leisure time during the week. And yet we tend not to put a whole lot of thought and intention to it. Like we're just kind of marching through the things we have to do. Like if you have kids, you're trying to get them to do their homework, get them fed, get them bathed, put them to bed, and then collapse on the couch. But we can all the must-dos don't necessarily take 4 to 5 hours every night. There generally is still space for something. So figuring out what that something is and making it enjoyable can be a major boost in life satisfaction.
Absolutely. And how about delegating some of the chores, etc., to free up time? Do you recommend that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, in life, there's a lot of things that if there's something that is not the best use of our time, we can either ignore it, minimize it, or outsource it. I would argue that in many cases, household chores could be minimized There's a lot of things that don't necessarily need to be done. I've seen on time logs, like people spend an hour picking up the house after the kids go to bed, and it's like, those toys are just coming out tomorrow morning. Like, we can spend the time doing this, but it's not really gonna help matters tomorrow morning when they're all back out. So we can minimize things. Like, I'm a big fan of simple dinners. We can order groceries online. I try to come up with various home hacks. But outsourcing is a great idea too. Obviously to professional sorts. Obviously getting a housekeeping service every week or two might free up time in people's schedules that they can, not just use for work, but for relaxing and enjoying their weekends. However, if you have other family members, I would also recommend that you can outsource to them as well. We have a rotation of who does the dishes every night. The good news about having a lot of kids is that's a lot of nights.
A lot of help.
And, I mean, for many years, like, I'm a modern family. It's not like I'm putting my kids to work, like the farm families of the days in the
In the
past. But now
mines.
I understand, why they did it. Like, you've got like all these people who can do stuff now, as they get older. So it's wonderful when we finish dinner, like on a Tuesday night, and I'm bringing my dishes up to put in the dishwasher, and I see that my 16-year-old is just standing there starting to scrub stuff because it's his night and he is on it and it's happening. And then the next night it'll be the 14-year-old, and like, so far they do it, and those are nights that I am not doing dishes, and it's great.
I think there is actual research that children who do chores are later on more satisfied in life.
I think it's that, we all want to feel like we are part of something bigger than ourselves and that we make meaningful contributions. And so, my kids do get put to work a lot of, especially because I have older kids and younger kids. There's a lot of babysitting that goes on around here. Usually not longer periods of time, but I don't want to have to drag the 6-year-old with me to go like bring the 11-year-old to something in the evening. And so, yeah, his older siblings stay with him and watch him and make sure that he's entertained and safe. And that's great. We're all contributing.
And I'm still thinking about not cleaning up the toys. What do you do then? You just leave them on the floor? Or do you say to all kids, hey, this is the playing room, this is where your toys are? They never leave the room.
Yeah, there's some element of that. I've made sure in all my homes we have a playroom. And the playroom is, ideally not something I am seeing from either my bedroom or my office, because those are the places where I either want to be relaxed and sleeping or I need to be productive. And so I don't want to be looking at a mess. But if a mess simply exists in the playroom, like, that doesn't need to have anything to do with me, like, during the rest of the time. Now, obviously, I know some people have smaller houses that's not a thing. But, as soon as possible, getting the kids involved in cleaning up their own stuff is probably the way to go with that. You could get through a lot in 10 minutes if you've got multiple people doing it. And I also believe in setting boundaries around a lot of housework. Like, give yourself 10 minutes with the timer going and the kids contributing. And if it didn't happen in those 10 minutes, like, yeah, it's probably good enough.
That's a good one. You said once that you've never met a mom who said she wished she'd worked more. Now, so many business owners,
Whoa. Wait, I said, yes, they do want to work more. Like,
they do want to
I
work
did not
more.
say that. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've met tons of people who want to work more.
Oh, unpack that.
Yeah. No. Okay. Oh, well, we need to back up here
Oh,
because,
yeah.
yeah, like, actually, one of the things I encounter a lot is people who have not gotten adequate childcare to truly grow their businesses. And it's hard. Like, you can be the most efficient person in the world, but if you have like a 3-year-old with you all day, it is going to be very hard to expand your business, to, get the things done. Like, you'll get done the stuff you absolutely have to get done, but you won't be thinking about reaching out to new clients. You won't be thinking about how to market yourself. You won't be thinking about all the things that are nice to do, but not urgent to do because you have such limited time. Whereas if you decide that you're going to have more hours available, then you will work more. I think you found that post that I was quoting somebody who is saying, I've never met a mom who wanted to work more. And I say,
Yeah.
absolutely. I have met a ton of moms
Ah,
whose lives would be, like a lot more calm
Yeah.
if they made space for the number of work hours that they're trying to do.
And that's a tough one, right? How do you do that?
Well, I mean, we've always had full-time childcare. Since my oldest was born, which has been a lot of years now, we have had, one way or the other, whether that was through daycare or a nanny or some combination of preschool and a babysitter or whatever, because I simply cannot do my work during nap time. Like, I wouldn't expect a male entrepreneur to think he was going to build his business in nap time. So I think, where we have that story, especially for a lot of female entrepreneurs, that, oh, it's so flexible. I could do it, while the kid is in 2 hours of preschool and napping. Like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe. And if you want to do that as a lifestyle for a while and have a very limited business, great. Like, that's a choice. But if your ambitions are to grow it, then you might be better served by having, the 8 hours of childcare and getting your stuff done and then being fully present for your family outside of that time, instead of constantly trying to figure out, am I checking my email while the kids are doing something else? And like, maybe I can get my 3-year-old to watch Dora the Explorer for 20 minutes so I can go take this client call. And like, you're just frazzled, and it's not a good way to go through life.
Yes. And we always have to make sure that we're not, grumpy when we are present, right? That we are in kind of in the right state.
Yeah. I mean, I think fully focusing on whatever you're choosing to do at the moment is just the ultimate life hack. It's when we're trying to do too many things at once that we wind up being unhappy with all of it.
The book comes out in a few days, guys. It is called Big Time by Laura Vanderkam. I just pre-ordered the audiobook, and there is a Kindle and there is a paperback. Laura, you just saw the book. Tell us, how can you see the book in pre-order?
So I went to Barnes & Noble the other night to do some long-range planning, strategic thinking, something I like to do, like sit in the cafe with my notebooks and my calendar and think about stuff. And as I was walking through, they had the new nonfiction shelf, and there I was. So I was like, well, I guess the book comes out in a few days, but it's out a little early some places. So, if you check your local Barnes & Noble, it may already be there. But if you're listening to this after May 5, it will be out in the world everywhere. So please check it out. I really love this book. I mean, I've written a lot of books, but I do really, really love this one, and I hope other people will as well.
And we felt it, and that's why I bought it. And where can people find you, the research, the community around you?
You can come visit my website, which is lauravanderkam.com. And there you can find information about my various newsletters, my podcasts. You can, reach out to me there. Happy to answer emails from people. But that's the best place to look.
Laura Vanderkam, everyone. It's Big Time coming out in a few days. Thank you, Laura, so much for being here. Please come back soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Keep rolling.